is the story of two leaders, candidates to become the next CEO. Both of them eminently qualified. Between them, they have probably run just about every business and function in a global organization. And they have helped lead the company quarter after quarter to record growth. They've earned the respect of the board of directors, the CEO, and the entire organization. And that's really where the similarities end, because they're very different people. Harris is a high energy, really impactful people person, and Jeffrey is a little quieter, a little more analytical, different kind of guy. But interestingly, both of them have been asked to work on executive presence. So what's going on there anyway? Do they need to stand taller, wear a better suit, gesture bigger on stage? If only it were that simple. Executive presence has always been this kind of mysterious X factor in leadership. And I got interested in studying it because our firm helps organizations bridge the gap from strategy to execution with communicative leadership. So we were often asked to come into a company and work with a leader on executive presence. And of course we'd say, sure, but the next question is, what do you mean by that? And very often what they'd say is, well, I'm not sure, but I know it when I see it. So let me ask you that question rhetorically. Reflect for a moment on what you think about when you hear the term executive presence. What are some of the words and phrases that come to mind? We often hear confidence, charisma, savvy. We hear presentation skill. And the funny thing is, it's not that those are wrong, it's just that they're not quite right either. They don't really get to the essence of what we think about when we think about the importance of executive presence, do we? Now, you may wonder whether we even need to have a definition of executive presence. Why do we need it at all? Well, it turns out that executive presence is the number 2 reason why leaders seek out coaching, just behind general leadership effectiveness. And yet what we really know about executive presence is based on surveys and anecdote and observation. And frankly, it doesn't tell us what it is or even why we should care about it. So we decided to undertake the task of bringing some science to the topic of executive presence. Through that process, we developed a model of executive presence based in science and a definition of executive presence, and that is the qualities of a leader that engage, align, inspire, and move people to take action. And what we were striving for there is not only a definition of executive presence that leaders can understand and act on, but also a reason to care, why it matters. Because you see, executive presence is directly tied to a leader's ability to drive organizational performance. Now, this was a really robust project, it turned out, because we wanted to develop an assessment, a multi-rater assessment. So we invited in a group of independent PhD experts to help us winnow down a long list of items for the survey. And then we took about a year and we went out to 20 global companies and had them participate in a pilot with us. So out of that part of the project, we were able to see really exceptional reliability scores. So now we knew we were measuring the right things and that it was solid science. So what I'd like to do now is share very briefly the framework of executive presence, how we think about the model, how we measure it, and how we coach to it. The model is organized in 3 dimensions. Think of 3 dimensions of a person. There's style, substance, and then character. So style. Style is not just what you wear. It's a way of doing things. And it does include appearance, but appearance is nuanced like all of the qualities of executive presence. It's not just whether you show up wearing the right clothing, whether you're appropriate. It's the energy and vigor that you bring to your leadership that gets people really engaged in a project. And it also includes qualities like inclusiveness and interactivity, the dialogical aspects of leadership, the communicative aspects of leadership that we tend to notice. In fact, we call this dimension the execution dimension because it's really about leaders aligning others to get things done. So if style is about execution, the next layer, if we peel back the onion, is substance. And substance is about credibility. These are the qualities that we develop as we mature, as leaders, as we have experiences and learn from them. So it includes qualities like practical wisdom and vision and resonance, which is a very important aspect of social emotional skill in leaders. And we call substance the credibility dimension because it's very important to earning the right to lead. So the final dimension, if we peel back the onion one more time, is character. And character is connected to trust. So it includes qualities like authenticity and humility and integrity that are really being talked about a lot today in leadership development. Now, I know you're probably wondering, how do you measure things like integrity and authenticity? Well, it turns out we can because we've designed the assessment not to measure personality or immutable traits. What it's measuring are behaviors. And as coaches, we know we can coach to behavior. We can change behavior. So let me give you a real-life example of how we're able to provide accurate data and insight connected to the leader's business imperatives that really helps them make the changes that they need to make to be better leaders, to be all the leader they can be. Let's go back to our two leaders, Harris and Jeffrey. Harris, if he has a strong suit, is probably resonance. He has an uncanny ability to read a room, to understand people's thoughts and emotions and to be responsive to those. But he decided what he wanted to work on was restraint. Now, restraint is in the character realm, and it has to do with creating stability, especially in times of change and challenge and disruption. And who doesn't see that in an organization today? So Harris wanted to work on that because his organization was going through a lot at that time, and he knew he needed to create more stability, to react differently, to invite people in, to bring in bad news if they needed to. Now, Jeffrey, on the other hand, his strong suit is practical wisdom. He's the guy who always asks that penetrating question that gets everybody to the heart of the matter and gets everybody on the same page. What he wanted to work on was authenticity, because he's a private person. He holds things close to the vest. It doesn't come natural to him, but he knew if he was going to be the CEO someday, he would have to stand on a bigger stage and be able to share stories. So the point of all this is when leaders get accurate data and insight that's connected to their business drivers, they're motivated to make changes, even at the senior executive level. And now I know you're probably wondering, well, how do you know you're moving the needle on things like this? Well, we had the opportunity to go in and work with a group of 23 high potential leaders reporting to the senior executive team in a global manufacturing company. And all 23 of them completed a Bates XPI assessment. Half of them had the opportunity to go through a coaching program. It was light touch. They were really remote coaching over a 6-month period. The other group went through a 2-day executive presence mastery program, and they also had a couple of coaching sessions afterward. The organization invited us back to reassess the group after 9 months. Now, this can be, I know, fraught with peril because a couple of them had been promoted and some of them had different raters, but we were able to overcome that. And what we saw was remarkable. There wasn't a big difference between the groups, interestingly, but the leaders improved on average, not just in the 1 or 2 areas they were working on during the program. On average, they improved in 9 of the 15 facets of executive presence. And so you wonder, well, what's that all about? Well, it turns out these 15 qualities of presence are interconnected. They're interwoven. They affect one another. So when you begin to work with a leader in one area of executive presence, it's not at all uncommon for people to start to see different behaviors and to start to really feel the difference in their leadership style. One of the reasons that I'm so committed, if you will, to bringing this model of executive presence and an assessment to the global coaching community is because we all know how painful it is for leaders to get vague feedback they can't do anything with. They don't know what to do about it. And worse, either to get it too late or not at all. In our community, there are hundreds, there are thousands and thousands of success stories in coaching, which is one of the reasons why coaching is such an exciting profession right now. I mean, it is evolving, it is changing, it's growing, and we're having a greater and greater impact. And that's one of the reasons that I really feel it's very important for us to take that as a mandate and to bring innovation to the practice of coaching. It's very important for us also to bring measurement to things that have often been pretty squishy for leaders. In fact, we have the opportunity to make the intangible tangible. And you know, when we do that, we not only make the coaching profession better, we make leaders better, and we make organizations better. Thank you.